Good morning. We're learning as a schusser for Shleima Filan Chaya Basarach and for Bastien Bas Chaya. We are on Peites Amid Beis in the Gemara. We saw the Gemara's question that the Mishnah in its list of things that the Gid Anash applies to says Mukdashim. And the problem was, what's the Chiddush that Gid Anash applies to Kachim? When someone's Mekadesh an animal to be used on the Mizbeach, it already has a Gid Anasha. The din of the Gid Anasha already applied. Where would it go? What's the Chiddush that the Isser of Gid Anasha applies if someone would eat that Kodesh? It's not a problem in Isser Chalal Isser. The Gid was there before. So that's the essence of the question. What's the Chiddush of saying that there's a chiyuv of Gid Anosha on Mikdash?
Meaning that it's logical, the question that it should be two malchus. Is that what we're saying?
Well, so we talked about whether there's going to be an isser on the kachim or not, right? Maybe the chiddush was it's only on the Gid Anosha and not on the kachim because that ain't bekachim b'noisin tam.
Right.
So
but
that
if you say
that
if you
there's no
hold
kiddush
that it
isser
is,
meila.
right.
So we said no, but we brought a brayso that says there is a nice and tam, so it should be both. So again, so what's the chiddush to tell you that we're not really concerned with the Mukdashin? The point is that the Mishnah, if it was coming to tell you that there's both, then we had the problem that it should say that the Isser Mukdashin is chal on the Isser Gid Anosh. That's not what it said. It says that Isser Gid is naik.
Got it. Got it.
Do we have the same oynish on both of them?
As it happens, no.
Maybe
Right?
that's the kiddush.
It's going to be negay on Amud Aleph that I think that the Isser of Kachim is Karas. Right? If you eat Kachim Mila, there's a Chiv Karas. And on Gid Anasha is Malchus. So it's Muhammad. So I mean, essentially, Karas, the applied, the actual what we can do in Bezdin is going to be Malchus in either case. But
I mean, is Rafal asking Kamle b'derabimene? Because when you would eat it, that you would have only one einish anyways, could apply.
we don't say Kamle b'derab minei. I think
If
from
it's
Karas, from something that's Karas against something that doesn't have Karas. They're both Malchus, I think. So we wanted to say we're talking about the Chiddush is going to be by by a shlil, where by Vladus Kachim, and Vladus Kachim by Yemin and Kachim, so that the Isser Gid and the Isser Mukdashin come both at the same time, right? There's an Isser both on the fetus. And we're talking about, so we don't have that the Isser Gid came before the Isser Kachim. That we're talking about an animal that was born to a mother that was kachim, and therefore the vlad is also kachim, and it gets an isser right away at conception it gets the isser kachim, which is also when the gid is formed. So it also that they both happen at the same time. So we're saying even though they both happen at the same time, you still have an isser gid. You don't say ein isser chalal isser, which is, I mean, when it's not exactly clear why would the Isser Kachim come before. Maybe something like Rafal is saying, maybe because it's Karas, only the Isser Kachim would be Chal if they both come at the same time. But that's a Chiddush. You can't say it's not a Chiddush that if they both come at the same time, that the Isser Gid Anosha is not. It could be negay also if a person got a hasra on the Isser Gid Anosha and not on the Kachim. So we're 6 lines from the bottom, middle of this discussion. So can we really say that at conception of a child born to an animal that's kachim, that the child is going to have an iser kachim? It's going to be kachim just like its mother, and therefore will be Asr B'al Kachim right away, as well as the Isser Gid Anosha, which will come at that same time. Are they really going to come at the same time? But it's not. Al Elu Tumois hanazir megalech. On these tumas, a nazir is mechuyev to keep himself away from tuma, and if it becomes tame, he has to restart his tuma. He has to shave off his hair and start again. Ala mace, if he touches or is in the oil with the mace, al kazayis min mace, as well as a kazayis from a mace. And the kashalon al kazayis min mace megalech al kuloi koshekin. What kind of din is this to tell you that you chai for both an entire mace as well as a kazayis in the mace? Obviously, if you chai on the kazayis, you're going to be chai on the whole thing. It's coming to tell you could sometimes have a whole mace that's less than a kazayis when you have a vlad, a nefel of a person, a baby that is very premature or very small, that it didn't even get its gidden yet. So that could be less than a kazayis, but because of its status as an entire barrier, an entire person, an entire guf, less than a kazayis, it's going to be metama the nazir. So that's why the Mishnah has to tell you that you could be chayiv either on a kazayis or on an entire body, because you could sometimes have an entire body that's less than a kazayis, where the varim didn't come in, where the gidden did not come in yet to put together a very small fetus. But what comes out from this, not that we don't really care so much about, we do care about it, but it's not our point is not about the nazir and the tumah, but alma issa mukdash kadim. We're saying that there's a point in the development of a fetus where it's a full fetus, but it doesn't yet have the gidden. The gidden nosha is one of the gidden. So you're trying to say that at conception, the Isser Mukdashin comes at the same time as the Isser of Gidden Nosha. But if we say that in development of a baby, the body is complete prior to the Gidden coming in, so you have a period where the Isser Mukdashin is already there, but the Gidden haven't yet formed. The Gidden Nosha is not there yet. So we're back to that the Isser Kachim came first and the Isser Gidden Nosha came next. So therefore, it should be ein Isser Chalal Isser. The Isser Gidden. Why are we saying in our Mishnah that there is a Isser Gidden Nosha? Because they both come at the same time in this case of a baby of a Kachim. It shouldn't be true. So Gemara, Avagav the Isser Mukdashin Kadim also Isser Gid Chayil Alai. The one says it's not a problem. In this case, where the Isser Gid comes after the Isser Kachim, it still can take effect. And even though there's a rule, Ein Isser Chal Isser, there are two general classes of cases where that's not the case, that Isser can be Chal Isser. One is a Isser Maisif, and one is a Isser Chomer. So we're not going to be talking about here about Isser Maisif. Isser Maisif is where the new Isser is larger. It covers a bigger area than the first Isser. But Isser Chomer is that the new Isser is in some way more Chomer than the original Isser. And why is the Isser of Gidden Nosha more Chomer than the Isser Kachim? Shechin Isser Noyeg B'nei Noyach. Because the Isser Gidden Nosha, we all know, we learned it in Chumash, that it started from Yaakov when he was Vayavak Ish Imai. So already at that time, it says Al Kin Lo Yechlu Bnei Yisrael's Gidden Nosha. The Isser Gidden Nosha started before Matan Torah, so it applies also to people who are not subject to the Torah.
Does that mean the Goyim have this mitzvah also?
I'm sorry.
Does that mean the contemporary Goyim have this mitzvah as well?
I think so. It doesn't make sense, does it? I never heard that it's one of the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nei Noach. Let's Mashin Avagav this Mugdash also is a good Chayil ve'Isser Chomahu Shenoig B'nei Noach Ketani Masdisen. I guess we'll get up to it on Daf Kuf. V'Loil B'nei Noach Nasa Gidden Nosha. Or maybe it just means that those Bnei Noach it applies to. Doesn't mean all Bnei Noach, but it belongs to Bnei Yisrael before Matan Torah. That's what it means. Yeah,
What are the three? What are the seven mitzvahs? There's Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, right?
I don't know. I didn't know I was going to be tested today.
No, no,
No, it's Avodah Zarah, right?
right.
Yichus Damim,
Gilarayas, and then the Aleph,
Rayas,
Beis, Gimel, Dalet.
um, Aver Menachai.
Right.
They have to make
Bezdin,
Bezdin, right? So up to
Gzela.
five. What's
Is
the
the
what's
Gimel Giranasha or Gzela?
I think Zela. I don't know. I don't know. I never learned this in mnemonic. What's the mnemonic they're using?
I remember I learned it from you at the when we did the I forget which Masechta was it that had Sanhedrin maybe that had the Shivim
It was
that
more than a week ago. I
the
don't remember.
mnemonics actually stick.
I don't remember.
All right.
Yeah, I don't think Kid Russia is one of them. Anyway, so that is the svara that Gid Hanasha will be a exception of the rule of Einis Echal Elisser because it's an unusually chomadika Isser that even applies to Bnei Yisrael before Matan Torah, Bnei Noach. Man Sham Lehai Svara. Who is the Mandamar who says that we say Gid Hanasha applies even on another Isser because it's an Isser Chaber? Reb Yehuda, which we're going to see in the Gemara in a minute. So it's relevant to know under what circumstances Reb Yehuda say this. He says Lagabi Gid Hanasha of an behemoth Tmeya. He says if someone will eat the Gid Hanasha of a behemoth Tmeya, we say that there is Yesh Begidim Noitzin Tam, and therefore, even though the Isser of Tuma happens, like we said in the earlier, we just said that the Giddim come later than the formation of the animals. The Isser Tuma was the Isser of Behemoth Tmeya was before the Isser of Gid Hanasha. He says it will still apply because it's more Chomer, because it applied to the Yiddim Bnei Yisrael before Matan Torah. So it's just like he says at Lagabi Tumah, he'll also say at Lagabi Mukdash. For tomorrow, but that's Rabbi Yehuda. V'hamasis is like Rabbi Yehuda. Our mission is like Rabbi Diktani. Noig bebehem b'chai b'yerach sheyaminu b'yerach shel Shmuel. As we're going to see on Amud Beis, Rabbi Yehuda is the man the Amar holds that it's not on the Yerach Yamin and Yerach shel Shmuel. He holds it's only on the Yerach Yamin. Like we said before, he started off saying it should be on either one. He wasn't sure which one, but in the end, he decided it was the Yerach Yamin. So our mission is not Rabbi Yehuda. It's like the more Haitana Saval Kavasa Bechada Palagal Bechada. No, our Mishnah holds like Yehuda Legabi the Isser Chomer because it's not by Bnei Noach. But he doesn't like Rabbi Yehuda Legabi the Yerech Yemin and Yerech Small. So the aim of the Shamal Yehuda B'Tmeya the Isser Lav Kachim the Isser Lav. In fact, the Gemara, how do you know that Rabbi Yehuda is this? That Rabbi Yehuda would even say this din over here that it's a Isser Chomer, that Gid Hanasha is a Isser Chomer and it takes effect. Maybe that which we say that Isser, you say that Gid Hanasha is a Isser Chalal Isser, is only as it relates to the Isser of Behemoth Tmeya, which is only an Isser Lav. Kachrim the Isser Karis Mishamet. But how do we know to apply? We're saying that Isser Mukdashim, Asi Isser Gid, Chayla Isser Kachim, maybe this din of Rabbi Yehuda only applies as relates to Behemoth Tmei, but maybe Gabi Kachim, which is a Chi of Karis, you wouldn't say an Isser could be Chalan or Borchamadik Isser of Karis. So the Gemara says we're going to reject that teretz. I'm going to say a different explanation that a different explanation of how this is how it's gonna take effect, the Isser Gid Hanasha. Halachacha, in spite of the fact that the Giddim come later than the Kachim. Halachacha b'mavakeres askinan. We're not talking about Stam Isser Kachim, where a behema that's Kachim, a female, a mother that already Kodesh gives birth to a child that's also Kodesh. We're talking about an animal that gives birth to a Bechar. So the Bechar becomes a Kodesh, the Berechem Kodesh, that it becomes, even though Berechem sounds almost a little bit the opposite of what it means, what it's trying to say is that it becomes Kaddish when it's born. So therefore the Giddim, which developed before the birth, came prior to the Kedusha of the Bechar, which comes about at the birth. And that's going to be the Chiddush of our Mishnah, that in such a case, one might think that the Kedusha of a Bechar starts from conception, and it's coming to Chadash, it starts when it's born, and therefore the Isser Gid is Chal beforehand. Viva Yisema, another possible teretz, Vlad is Kachim Baviyosan Hin Kedoshim. Another teretz, our whole problem was that the Isser of Kachim precedes the Isser of the Gid HaNasha, because Gid HaNashas are formed, the Giddim are formed later than conception, and conception is when the Kedusha of Kachim starts, and the Isser of Gid HaNasha starts later. We're saying that no, the Isser of Kachim doesn't start from conception, but it only starts when the baby is born, and therefore it comes later. Okay, so that is the end of our discussion about this question about why is it pashut. It's pashut that the Gid HaNasha should be chal. It's talking about this specific case, or if either the case of a bechar, or it's going to the Mount Amma because what is kosher by Yasin and Kedoshim. Amar Chia by Yosef, Lo Shanu el Kachim Hanechalim. That which we're saying that the Isser of Gid HaNasha is chal, that's only on Kachim Hanech. Well, we'll see exactly Legabi what application he means. But he says the din of Gid HaNasha on Kachim is only in Kachim Hanechalim. It's only those Kachim like a shlamim or a chatas that the basa of the animal is eaten. So you can't eat the Gid HaNasha. Aval Kachim she'ein nechalim, but Legabi and Oila ein Isser Gid noyig behen. The Isser of the Gid HaNasha is not noyig. We have to explain what exactly we mean. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Echad Kachim Hanechalim ve'Echad Kachim she'ein nechalim Isser Gid noyig behen. Rabbi Yochanan says that the Isser Gid will even apply on a Oila. What does that mean? So we're going to have three different possibilities of how to understand this machlaikas. Amar Papa, the loy pligi. It's not really a machlaikas between Rav Chia bar Yosef and Rabbi Yochanan. Even Rabbi Yochanan says that Isser Gid does apply to Oila, and Rav Chia bar Yosef said it doesn't. They're talking about two different things. Kan lahal kaisai. When Rabbi Yochanan said that the Isser Gid is noyig, it's talking about someone who eats from an Oila, the Gid HaNasha, he's going to be chayiv to Malkus. And that Rabbi Chia bar Yosef would agree. Right? We just said that the Isser Gid HaNasha is chal on Kachim. So even though it's an Oila, it doesn't make a difference, you're still going to have the chayiv Malkus. And Kan lahaloise, Rabbi Chia bar Yosef said that the Isser Gid HaNasha is not chal. It's talking about whether he's trying to tell you that even though Gid HaNasha is also to eat, it still has a din that it's brought up on the Mizbech. So they both agree what the other one said. If you bring an Oila, you could bring the Gid HaNasha. They'll both say Legabi that the Gid HaNasha is not aser by an Oila. Excuse me. And everyone would agree you get Malkus for eating it. That is the first version of what Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Chia bar Yosef are both saying, not necessarily arguing. Ikadami or Papa v'loy pligi. It's saying a different thing. again, but they're not arguing. Kan lechaltzoi, where Rabbi Chia bar Yosef said that the Isser of Gid Hanasha is not Chal on Oila, he's talking about whether you have to take off the Gid Hanasha from the Basar before you bring it on the Mizbech. That means Rabbi Chia bar Yosef is saying, there's no Isser Gid, you're not required to remove the Gid Hanasha, which is again the same thing like we said before. L'haloisai, we said it is that Rabbi Chia bar Yosef said that the Gid Hanasha doesn't apply, that you do burn it. Now saying that Rabbi Chia bar Yosef, when Rabbi Yochanan said that I'm sorry, Rabbi Chia bar Yosef says that it's not going to be considered asur by a oila, means you don't have to take it out. You can burn it together with the rest of the thing, which is the same thing we said before. The kan lahaloisei, and when Rabbi Yochanan says that now we're switching over the pshat and haloisei. Before we said haloisei, we said was Rabbi Chia bar Yosef. I think that was right. No, before he said it was Rabbi Chia bar Yosef was saying haloisei. Now we're saying Rabbi Yochanan is the one that's saying lahaloisei, but we're changing the context of what it means. Lahaloisei, it's saying if you had separated the Gid Hanasha from the Oila, and now it's sitting there on its own, that Rabbi Yochanan is Rabbi Yochanan is saying that it's going to be asur and you can't put it up. But he'll agree that if it hadn't been removed, that you do take it off, that you do bring it up. It is brought on the mizbech. So again, they're not arguing. They're talking about two different things, and the two shittas, they're not. It's just a question of what they're referring to, but they're not really arguing on one another. They're just arguing, I think, about what the context of what we're talking about. So those are the first two shittas, which say that Rabbi Chia bar Yosef and Rabbi Yochanan are just addressing different things. They're addressing, in the second shot, they're just talking about under what circumstances you do bring and what circumstances you don't bring the Gid Hanasha on the Mizbech. They're talking, so Rabbi Yochanan, who says that it does go up, it's talking about while it's still attached, and Rabbi Yochanan, who's saying it doesn't go up, is when it was separated. And in the first shot, we were talking about whether you get Malkus, and also about whether you bring it up in the first place. So those are the first two pshat. He says no. He says there is an actual machlokes between Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Yosef, and Rabbi Yochanan. There's actually, not to make a pun, but there's meat to this disagreement, to what they're saying, and they're arguing about whether you bring up the Gid Hanasha in the first place. If it's still in the thigh it's still in the basar of the Oila, Rabbi Yochanan says you can't bring it up, which is a new shita. You have to separate it, and you can't burn it. The Tanya, and we'll say that this is a machlokes tanoim that they're reflecting, and it's going to take us a while till we get back to Gid Hanasha. First, we're going to talk about generally, so not to get confused. We're talking about generally about the dinim of the different bones and hooves and horns, all the different inedible portions of an oila. What its din is, and eventually we'll get to where we'll see that Rebbe and the Rabbanan argue in this machlokes that we just said between Rabbi Chia bar Yosef and Rabbi Yochanan, that the Rabbanan, the Chachamim hold that taka you cannot bring the Gid Hanasha on the mizbeach. You have to separate it and not burn it on the mizbeach. And Rebbe says you can. So the Tanya, Pasuk says about oila, the whole thing should be burnt on the mizbeach. It's talking about the bones and the sinews and the horns and the hooves. I might think even if they were separated, you still have a chiyuv to burn them on the mizbeach together with the oila. The Torah denotes specifically meat and blood. The Torah, which we know that those are both brought on the mizbeach, because the Torah says they have to be burnt on the mizbeach. So If that's the case, maybe since we're saying Basav Adam, maybe we shouldn't bring the inedible portions. We mentioned specifically the Gidim Atzamas would reply as well to Karnayim Etlofim, the horns and the hooves as well. Tamalayim Hikdar Kain is a Kalam Izbeicha. But we have the first pasuk that said everything gets burnt. Haketzat. So how do you satisfy these two opposing directives? Mechubar and Yalu. Pirshu afilu b'reishim mizbeach yardu. While they're attached, they're burnt on the mizbeach together with the ayla. But when they were separated, even if they're already brought on the mizbeach, you brought the basar and then you separate it into pieces and you took off a bone, and the bone doesn't have any meat attached to it, then it doesn't get burnt; it goes down. Uman Tana the Shamalei the Amar Parshu Yadu. Who is this man the Amar that we just said that says once the inedible portions of a oila are separated, they're not burned together with the basar? Rebbe, that's Rebbe, the Tanya. Vikar Akain is a koil. The rabbis hatzavos are yidim v'kanai v'atlafim v'afilu parshu. It's coming to include all of these inedible portions, and even if they were separated, that they have to be burnt. Not like we had said in the original brisa, and this is obviously not Rebbe, as we're going to see. That's talking about, I'm sorry, this is Rebbe. The B'paikin, that's talking about when the Torah says you should do the basar and the dam, if we're saying, even if you separated the inedible portions, it gets burned. So what does it mean, basar dam? What is that telling you? That's talking about just if these inedible portions were on the mizbech and they fell off, that you don't bring them back up. If, when the fire pushed them off, we had the paikin before, that over there it's not alu. You don't bring it up separately once it fell off.
That argues with the brisa we had before.
The
brisa we said before, Parshu and Yerdu.
Yeah, right. Right.
So it's not Rebbe.
Hold on. We just said
this new brisa is
Mantan Shamalei the Amar Parshu Yadu Rebbe. Right, we just said Parshu, if it's separated, it should go down, it's Rebbe. We just said Haketzad. So what does that mean? I know. Let's continue and see if it works out. What does that mean? Yes, this is the Chachamim. We're not yet quoting Rabbi. We're saying the Chachamim who disagree with Rabbi, that they say that even Parshu, you burn it, but you're not machzir yichulei gidim v'atzamis. If something was on the fire and it went off, was paika, you don't bring it back. Rabbi disagrees. Right? And Rabbi is going to be the man Amar from the previous, who said parshu afilu b'shem mizbeach yardu. So what does Rabbi say? Rabbi Aimer because of echad Aimer v'hikter akayin sekal riba. We have a miyad, a riboy and a miyad. Haketzad mechubalim yardu yalu. If the mechubar goes up, parshu afilu b'rishim mizbeach yardu. So this is Rebbe saying what we said in the previous brisa. Rabbanan, why don't they agree with Rebbe? Mechubarim la'itzachra. They don't agree with Rebbe's drasha because they hold you don't need a pasuk to tell you that the gidim v'atzamas that are mechubar are burnt on the mizbeach. The Torah specifically says that you should burn the oila together with its head, and the head contains with it a lot of bones, a lot of parts that are not not edible. And even so, the Torah specifically says that you should burn it with the oila. So that tells you that anything that's inedible, also, if it's you don't need a pasuk to tell you that it gets burnt with the basar. So ki etzachra leparshay. The only reason why the Torah needs to tell you that they're going to be burned together with the carbon, that's where they were separated. And even so, they're saying that it gets burnt. So this is, yeah, so we're saying that inedible portions get burnt. Even if they're separate. V'Rebbe mechubarim the Torah le'yitzrikra. He says you don't need a pasuk to tell you. Rebbe says you don't need a pasuk to tell you those things that are mutter. Ki yitzrikra legid hanosher b'mechubar. Finally, getting back to our topic, it's called, according to Rebbe, Taka don't need the pasuk. He agrees with the Raisha, with the Taina that you could have learned it from Raisha, but you need the pasuk for something else. It's not coming to tell you parshu that it goes up. It's coming to tell you that the gid hanosha, when it's attached, it still is brought. It's so that tells you that you bring the gid hanosha while it's attached. But the Chamim don't agree to that. They don't agree that you bring the gid hanosha while it's attached. For Rabbanan Mashki Yisrael min hamutal Yisrael. They learn out the gid hanosha, even when it's still part of the basar, has to be removed and can't be burnt, which is not like what we've been saying till now, from the beginning, right? That was, we'll say this is the machlekes, and Rabbi Yochanan, who said that the gid hanosha applies, even by Oila, means you have to remove the gid hanosha. He's saying like these Rabbanan, because we learn from Mashki Yisrael, the Torah says you should bring karbanos from that which is drunk specifically, but it means consumed by the Yidden. Min hamutal Yisrael. That tells you that only those things that a Yid is mutter to eat can be brought as a carbon. The Rabbi disagrees. He says no. Even though there is such a rule of min hamutal Yisrael, min hamutal Yisrael, but the gid hanosha is similar to the chaylev and the dam that the Torah told you that you have to burn the chaylev as part of the imurim, and the dam goes on the mizbeach. Obviously, you do zrikas adam, and it gets burnt. So the gid hanosha is not any different from these things that are also to eat, because Rabbanan mitzvasa bekach shani, and Rabbanan say, how can you bring a raya from chaylev and dam and say gid hanosha is like them? That's the actual mitzvah. The Torah is telling you that these specific things have to be done. They're part of the avodah. But the gid hanosha, it's not part of the avodah. I will say, mimashki Yisrael, it becomes awesome. So now we're going to go in the Rabbanan who say that the gid hanosha is aser on the mizbeach. It has to be removed, or I guess it could even be going in the in Rebbe where the gid hanosha was separated. That also would have to be removed. Amar Rav Huna, gid hanosha shel oilo chol tzol tapuach. Rav Huna says you take the gid hanosha and you put it together with the pile of ashes, the round pile of ashes in the middle of the mizbeach. It was ultimately removed without burning. Amar Rav Chizda, Mari dichi miksev al ken leyochel hamizbeach, al ken leyochel bnei Yisrael ksev. It just says the bnei Yisrael can't eat the mashki, but this we just say that they can't eat the gid hanosha, but it would apply the mizbeach can eat the gid hanosha, and it could be burnt. Rav Huna mashki Yisrael min hamutal Yisrael. So basically, Rav Huna is saying like the Chachamim had said in the previous machlokes Amar Tanoi. Meisvei, gid hanosha shel shlomim mechavdim la'ama v'shel oila malei. We say that the gid hanosha of a shlomim gets pushed off into the yam; it doesn't get eaten. V'shel oila malei, you bring it onto the mizbeach. Ma'ala malei maktira, doesn't malei seem to mean that you bring it up and you burn it? L'chayr, not like Rebbe and not like the Chacham Rabbanan and not like Rabbi Yochanan. Like malei v'choltzei. No, it means that you take it up and you separate it into the tapuach, like Rav Huna had said. So once he's separating it, why is he bringing it out? Why don't you take it off before you bring it up onto the mizbeach? Why are you bringing it onto the mizbeach and then separating it and causing yourself this problem? Just separate it before it gets on the mizbeach. You have to bring, am I going to approach your Pesach if it's brought in an unappetizing way? Cutting it up, we've had this before, that the nituach has to take place on the mizbeach. It's not nice to bring cut up pieces of a carbon. Tani kavasa de Rav Huna, a raya to Rav Huna, gid hanosha shel shlomim mechavdei la'ama v'shel oila chotzel tapuach. It says that the parts of the oila, the gid anosh of the oila goes into tapuach and it's not burnt together with the rest of the korban. Let's get to the two dots. It will just take us. We have like 3 minutes, sort of. So we'll do the 3 minutes, and we should be get through it. It's not hustle. Tapuach hayabem sam mizbeach. There was this pile in the middle of the mizbeach that they put the gid anoshim. B'hamahaya olav kishalosh meis kur. Sometimes it got up to 300 kurim of ash. Amarava guzma. Rava says it's not actual 300 kurim. That's a huge amount. That's just an exaggeration. Hishku asa tamid b'koshel zav. Similarly, we find that it says that they would feed the lamb that was being brought as the tamid. They would feed it from a kais made out of gold. Amarava guzma. Rava says it wasn't actually gold; it was just shiny copper. But they fed it in order to make it that it would be ready for the korban and made it easier to do the process. Amravami, the Torah lashon havoy. We find that the Torah uses a exaggerated lashon, divru neviim lashon havoy. We find that it v'im divru chacham lashon havoy. We also find that chacham did that. Divru chacham lashon havoy hadam marin. That what we just said that the tapuach was 300 kur. That was a lashon chacham. Divru Torah lashon havoy aram gedalos absurus b'shamayim. It says that he had that I forgot who it was. Ano anachnu oilem machenu mamasos loveinu lemer am gadol v'ram. It's talking about when the Meraglim went into Eretz Yisrael. It said it's up. The cities are up to Shemayim. Obviously, it wasn't actually up to Shemayim. Divru neviim lashon havoy v'tivaka aretz l'koilam by the party that they made for Shlomo when he was oila to the Melucha. It says it split the earth from the amount of noise, which is also an exaggeration. That's 3 times in the Chacham use the lashon havoy. Eluhen tapuach. Geffen u'paroiches. Tapuach hadamara and Namuach, we said it was 300 kur. Geffen the Tanan Geffen Jazav Haisa Amidis Al Piskei Shalechel. There was a grapevine made out of gold on the entrance to the Heichel. Umudla al Gabi Klunsois. It was attached to pillars. V'chol Mishahi Misnadev Gargir Oyeshko. Anyone who would give a bundle or a grape, a golden grape, to donate to the Beis Hamikdash, maybe v'toilaba. They would hang on it on it. There was so many donations given, they had to get 300 kahanim to remove all the golden donations. So that's obviously exaggeration to say 300. It seems like 300 was a common number to pick as an exaggeration. The thickness of the pareichus in the Beis Hamikdash was the tefach. It was woven on 27 types of looms, pieces of a loom. Every string had 24 threads. Archa arbayim ba'ama was 40 amas wide. V'rachva eser ba'ama was 20 wide. It was made out of 820,000 threads. Ushtayim oisim b'shana to make it twice in a year. Shalosh meis gehanim mat bilin oisa, and they used to have to clean it. They would be taivel it. It would take 300 gehanim to be taivel it again. The 300 was a guzma. It didn't really take 300, but that was the guzma, the third guzma of the chacham. Shkayach.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Have a